Hey guys, I am Brittany Purcell and I have with me Nolan Gottlieb, one of the supreme agents on our team who's kicking ass and taking names. And I just wanted to do a little bit of an interview with him today because he's accomplished some really great things. And so I actually wanted to start, Nolan, by kind of giving people a little bit of a history on how you got into real estate. So will you back up and kind of tell them a little bit of that story?
Sure. So I got into real estate kind of because I didn't have any other option at the time, to be honest with you. I had a double lung transplant and I was a teacher previous to getting a transplant. And I really enjoyed teaching. I taught middle grades, math and science, and really enjoyed science. But after transplant, being on immunosuppressants and all that kind of stuff, I could not go back to teaching, being around sick kids all day. So I had a friend that was on your team at the time, and they asked if I'd ever considered real estate, and I hadn't. I didn't know anything about it. But because I was looking for a job where I could kind of be flexible in my schedule and not have to be around a ton of people, I thought, we'll give it a shot.
Cool.
So I did it.
So what happened next?
Yeah. So I started taking the Real Estate Express online class or whatever, and just, if anybody's ever done that, it's kind of just the basics of real estate. I mean, it's not even stuff you'll use really, but it's just whatever. So I did that and kind of just floated through that, not really understanding any of it, really. It was just getting ready for a test.
Let me just memorize this so I can pass this
That's
test.
right.
Yep.
That's right. So when I did, and I took the test and I passed the test and everything, and then I got into real estate, then the actual learning started, which there was a big learning curve. It took probably, 4 months to kind of understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
But once I understood it and really kind of grasped the business, I really, really, really enjoyed it, and wish I would have done it 15 years ago.
Right. Yeah. So if you could go back just to those few months, if we just pinpoint that period, and you're talking to a new agent that just got in, is there any feedback that you would share with them just based on those? Let's call it the first 6 months of real estate.
Yes, your sphere is huge when you get into real estate. Your sphere is basically the people around you that you know. That's your sphere. So my first 3 or 4 transactions came from my sphere.
Yeah.
And so my advice to anybody that's getting started that knows nothing about real estate, that doesn't have any connections in real estate, would just be talk to your friends and your family about real estate. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
You will learn in the in-between times of conversations. And, I was on a team, so I was able to ask questions that would come up to people on the team, to you and whoever. So there wasn't a time where it was like, having a real estate conversation and then I was stumped and just couldn't do anything until I figured it out. I could get on the phone and call somebody who had the experience. What
I love about you is you have a mentality that I often encourage a lot of people to have, which is just act, go out there and act now. And let people know that you're not the expert in the moment, but you can find the answer. And you've always been really, really good at that, just being brave and getting out there and just telling people, even when you didn't have all the solutions immediately. And you have had quite some learning lessons. You've had quite the transaction. So would you tell us your worst horror story?
My first transaction, my first contract that I had that was not from my sphere, the buyers terminated 2 days before closing. Just got cold feet and terminated 2 days before closing.
What'd you learn?
I learned a lot. The biggest thing I learned was to ask questions. My gut was telling me that something wasn't right, but just because they were excited about it, I was like, okay, let's go with it. Which I understand my job is to represent them and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like I probably could have got to the bottom of their mindset had I been asking more questions and knew what questions to ask.
Like what? What would you have asked differently?
What is it in a house that you need? What are you wanting? I would understand the difference between a dream that they've got and what is actually the must-haves type thing, because I think what it boiled down to is they were getting into too much house. I mean, it was a newly married couple, and they, I mean, I don't remember exactly the square feet, but it was probably close to 3,000 square
It's a
feet.
big house.
I mean, it was a lot. And I think the price was at the top of their budget. They got a pre-approval that said that they're good for, I don't know, 250 or something. I don't remember what it was. And this was like 249.
So it was right at.
So it was right at the top. I think they were just going to be stretched too thin. And, had I, one, trusted my gut, and two, asked enough questions, I don't think we would have gotten in that position in the first place. Or
really good
they would have terminated in due diligence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. Asking a lot of questions, making sure that you're aware of what's their dream versus what's their must-haves. And that's a great learning lesson. Well, Nolan has really succeeded at a really high level on our team. He sells a lot of houses. He sells probably 20 to 25 houses every year, if not more. And then he adds on to that, almost doubles that by buying his own houses. And that's another reason that I wanted to bring him onto our channel today, is because at a certain point, you were listening to some podcasts and a light bulb went off for you. Here at Brittany Purcell and Associates, we really pride ourselves in helping you guys learn to develop wealth, because we want to make sure you not only know how to earn an income, but you know how to earn, passive income in the future and grow your future life, because retirement is not exactly a thing for most people if they don't plan for it, because you're an independent contractor in real estate. So back me up to when the light bulb went off for you with investments. Do you remember when like all of a sudden that was your moment where you said, I should do this? And can you walk us through that?
Yes, it was a 3-step process. So the first step was, after about, I don't know, 4 or 5 transactions, I started getting a commission check. And, commission checks are great.
Heck yeah.
But you work really, really hard for commission checks. And for some reason, I thought, I don't know how like present this was, but there was always something in the back of my head thinking, you feel great now. You just came off a transplant. You feel great. You feel better than you've ever felt. You're able to get out there and grind and hustle more than ever. But if something happens and you can't, the commissions stop dead in their tracks. That's it. So that was the first inclination that something needed to happen. The second was one of the transactions I was on was with an investor, out-of-state investor, from a lead call, and they were wanting to offer $225 cash on a house that they were not going to live in. And at the time, I didn't quite understand that. I was like, how is somebody going to pay this much money cash for a house that they're not going to live in? So I was wondering, where does that type of money come from? Is this guy in the mob, or, what's the deal? Turns out he was just an investor. So between that and knowing that, as soon as you stop hustling, commissions stop. So between those two, I started asking, okay, well, what is investing? How do I get passive income and all that kind of stuff? And then somebody, it was actually AJ, your husband, said you ought to listen to Bigger Pockets podcast. So I did. And then that was it. I was like, oh, that's how they're doing it. And it was probably 6 months from that point to the time I bought the first property. But the podcasts are an hour long. I listened to them 2 showings from showings, and it was like $1 million education that I wish I would have known 25 years ago.
Yeah, can't live in regret. We're going forward though.
Yeah.
So when was that you bought the first property?
The first property was December of 2020.
Okay. And to give you reference, it is now November of 2021. It's been a year, just almost a year. Where are you now? How many properties do you own?
I've closed on 21 units and I've kept 19 of them.
21 houses and you've kept 19 of them. Okay, so you must be like rich, right?
No. So the first property we bought was on market, and I was working with a few folks that had expressed interest in investing. So I thought the 3 of us were going to go in and find something and fix it up and rent it out and whatever, the stuff that I heard in Bigger Pockets. Well, when it came right down to it, we got it under contract and they were like, we don't want to rent. It's too long. We want something. We want to make quick money.
Yep.
So I knew that this was a great deal. And I said, well, let's just give me till the end of due diligence to find money and I'll take the contract over myself. So I did. I called one of my best friends from college who at the time was also wanting to get into investing. And I said, hey, this is a great opportunity. Do you want to go 50-50 with me?
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with the down payment, which was 20% of the contract price. We got a hard money loan, which funded the purchase and the rehab.
Mm-hmm.
They did an appraisal and they would, do up to I think it was 75 or 80% of that value. So we got a hard money loan. We closed on it. We came up with our down payment, closed on it, and then did a refinance after it was completely rented out and got all our money back. And then once we did that for the first time and showed, because I documented all this stuff on Facebook and everything, but after that first one and proved that we could do it, then I basically said, people were following along on Facebook, and I basically said, hey, is anybody out there interested in earning 12% interest on their money if they invest, so I can use that money to go buy properties? And we had a few people that expressed interest.
This is my favorite piece of this because a lot of people go, well, I don't have the money. And so therefore, if I don't have the money, then I can't get started. And then they also go, well, if somebody does have the money, then why aren't they doing it themselves? And the truth of the matter is, if you have enough conversations with people, there are people with full-time stressful jobs, they have families, they've got, a husband or a wife that they're loving on that relationship. They've got kids, they've got football practices and whatever, and they've earned a lot of money, they've saved a lot of money, but they don't want to go prospect for houses and find these deals and comb these deals and then hire these contractors. That's another job in and of itself. So there are people out there that go, yeah, 10, 12% on my money. That sounds like a killer deal.
Yeah. And the thing that I've got going for me is, and I think every real estate agent out there has got going for them, is that we've got a legal unfair advantage. We know the market. We know what the rental prices are. We know what the purchase prices ought to be. We know, so whenever something comes up that just something seems off, we notice it and we see it before anybody else does.
Yep.
So, that is one thing also that helped me in that first deal, is because I recognized when something changed about this listing, I was the first one to see it. And, there was my unfair advantage.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so if you're a real estate agent and you're going, why would somebody want to invest with me? Honestly, it's because of your expertise. And I've experienced this, and I know you have now too, is that there's that advantage that you have, you forget that you even have it. You spot things and you think things internally that other people don't even spot. You spot it when you go, man, that house on that acreage, if we just split off that acreage and split it into 2 or 3 lots, then a builder might want to buy it for this, this, and this. And then we could sell the house for this or whatever. You putting those puzzle pieces together in your mind. And you bought a 4-plex, right? Was it a 4-plex or okay? And the upstairs of it was trashed. And you looked at it and you said, I could buy this, I could renovate this, touch this up, and then we could raise the rent to this amount, and then we could refi this thing. You saw that when not a lot of people even knew it was listed. Nobody even saw, they just saw, okay, it's crappy property.
Yeah. And, yeah, exactly. And going back to your thing a minute ago, why would somebody not do it themselves? It's like you said, they don't have the time. They want to invest in real estate. They've thought about it before. They just need somebody that can partner with them, right? So this whole thing is about relationships. I think all of real estate is about relationships. It's, it is a numbers game to some extent. Like, you have to know your numbers to be successful at it, whether you're an agent or whether you're an investor, but it is relationships.
Always.
Nobody would invest with me unless they thought that their investment was safe, right? And it's not just about numbers, because, you can find anybody that can run numbers, but whenever it comes down to here's my money, I'm trusting you with my money, that has to be a relationship. When you go into a listing appointment, it's not just numbers to them. They've raised families and they've lived life in this house. So there's an emotional attachment to it that, is more than numbers. So I wanted to mention that it's not just knowing the numbers and knowing the market, all that kind of stuff. It's also being a good person.
Be a good person. Yeah. Be a good person. Like we can just end the whole thing right there. So, where do you want to go with this investing? Like, what's your future look like now that you've figured out how to do this thing?
Well, after 11 months, I've got 19 units. And the passive income from that will,
when you're done, he's working on a couple of renovations. So when he's done with those renovations, what's your net income going to be every month from those doors?
Like $10,000.
Yes.
Yep.
So now, what does that get you?
It gets me like mental freedom. Right now, it's mental freedom.
Yeah.
There's not that pressure of, okay, if I don't go out and hustle, the bills aren't going to get paid, right?
You make better decisions when that happens.
Right. So there's that first. I'm working on time freedom. I don't have time freedom right now because I've given myself 3 years to just absolutely grind as hard as I can as an agent and as an investor. Because once that happens, and my goal is 100 units in 3 to 5 years. But once that happens, I will have the choice, if I want to just go to Colorado for a couple months and go fly fishing during the summer, or, go to the beach during the winter, or whatever it might be. But, I've at least got the foresight to know that if I work hard and if I do what I'm supposed to do now, then it will pay off big time in several years.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of real estate agents
they're short-sighted.
They get short-sighted. They're like, oh, the money's great now. The money's great now. I'm going to just be a good agent, which is, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a time where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted from going to showings and listings and whatever. Mm-hmm. And, their kids are growing up and like, they got to make a choice of going to the listing appointment or going to the game or going to the concert or whatever it might be. And I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah. I think well, you still get to make choices. Yeah. Like, what do I want to do with my life? And am I living a life that I want to live? It doesn't matter if it's kids or, hiking or fishing or dogs or whatever it is that you want to do, period. I kind of share that with you. Some people come in and they learn to make a lot of money and then they spend a lot of money. They have this lifestyle creep that happens. Mm-hmm. I made $50,000, so I spend $50,000, and then I made $80,000, so I'm spending $80,000, et cetera, and it creeps up from there. And so, if there's anything that I really work to teach our agents is to live beneath your means and then figure out what your long-term plan is so that you can build it. And even if somebody buys, say your real estate career is 15 years long, mine's already been 14, so I know it's going longer than this. I love this career. But say you buy a house once every 2 years, then you own 7 homes at the end of that 15 years. If you own 7 homes and over time you let those tenants, even just normal 30-year mortgage, let people pay it down. By the time you get ready to retire, those people have paid down that mortgage. Hopefully you're netting a certain amount of income. You make smart investments where you have a net income straight out of the gates, right? You buy the house, you rent it out, you have net income. If you make smart decisions there, you're already making some. And then, so like even the conservative ones that aren't buying 19 doors in a year, they can change their lives because at the end of that, you have 7 homes. And when you're ready to retire in say 20 years or whatever it is, as those tenants have paid off those mortgages, 7 houses at an average of, what's your average rent for like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath?
15 to 1700.
So let's say 1600. Okay. So $1,600 times 7 houses, that's $11,200 a month. Mm-hmm. And you guys, if you are thinking about retiring one day, a lot of you are worried about putting it in the stocks and putting it in, money markets and things like this, but those things are going to pay dividends. This will actually pay you passive income, and the money value still sits there. And if you're in real estate, you sell real estate, then you need to be doing this. You have an unfair advantage. You have expertise and you have knowledge that not a lot of people have. And you're learning how to tap into that.
Yeah. And talk about that lifestyle creep a little bit. So even though we've got 19 properties in a few months when everything's fixed up, we'll have X amount of passive income and plus commission checks and all that kind of stuff. I don't feel like I'm wealthy or rich right now because every extra cent goes into fixing floors or goes into, another property or whatever, a new roof on whatever property. So, if I didn't watch it, there could be lifestyle creep, but I know that for the next 3 years, there's no lifestyle creep. It's putting everything back into the business, and then that investment will then be an investment in some, it kind of multiplies and there's like a compound effect.
Yeah.
But but the reason I say that, there's nothing special about what I'm doing. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm just doing the things that I should be doing consistently.
So let's go one more little piece of detail here, because you're not finding a lot of these on the MLS. You found a couple on the MLS, but you're finding some of these deals in a really extraordinary way. How are you finding them?
It goes back to building relationships. I'll see a property, I'll find a property first, and then.
What do you mean?
Okay,
drive by it,
so pretty much just drive by it, because I'm a real estate agent and always out on the road and always driving around and meeting people and looking at houses. And it's funny, since I became a real estate agent, before being a real estate agent, I did not notice dumpy houses.
Yeah.
Now I notice every single one. They stick out like sore thumbs now. But anyway, so I'll find the house first, and then I will reach out. I've got several different ways I can find out who the owner is and reach out. But then it's just a matter of building trust and building a relationship with those sellers so that they know that you're not just coming in trying to swindle them out of a bunch of money or something. I explain what I do. I'm very upfront with what I do. I find out what their needs are. Why is it that this house is, been abandoned for 10 years without anything happening? Is there anything I can do to help? Do you need, whatever it might be. Do you need a roofer? I can put you in touch with a roofer. And if it's, whatever it might be, there's always a solution I can come up with, but it's building trust and building a relationship with those sellers.
So you don't just like call them, write them an offer, and then all of a sudden they accept it and it's over.
No, that's never happened. Well, on market it's happened, but not off market. Yeah.
Right.
So
that's the other thing that I really love about Nolan is he's scrappy, right? That's like one of my favorite words, is you just get in there and you go, hey, this is an opportunity. I tried to reach him. And what's funny is the one that you're renovating over here, you and I both sent letters to the same guy. I sent one letter and I got distracted and moved on to other things. How many times did you reach out to them?
Oh, I've seriously lost count. I've at least written 10 to 15 cards before I actually talked to anybody.
And then you talked to them how many times until?
I talked to them probably 4 or 5 times and then had to write more cards. And then finally,
so he's scrappy.
Yeah. And then finally, the son of the owner called and said, hey, we've been meaning to call you. We've been getting your cards. Dad's ready to sell. And that's how it went.
So for those of you who go, I sent one letter, I called one person, they didn't answer, they didn't call me back. You're doing it wrong. Like, if you really want something, you're going to have to go out there and really get it. And you have to know what you want. And you have to be willing to be told no, or be completely either rejected or ghosted quite a few times. 15 letters before somebody said yes. And then how many doors did you get off of that? 15. So we bought 15 homes, essentially. One of those is an apartment complex. One of those is a 3-bedroom house that's right across the street from our office, and it's looking beautiful. So is there anything, like, if there's an agent out here who's selling some houses and says, maybe they're in the position that you were in, where you go, man, if something happens to me, my income stops. And whether it's because maybe it's selfish and they just want to make sure that they're taken care of if something happens, or maybe it's selfless and they've got a family they're thinking about, or a spouse they're thinking about, or just somebody that they love, that they are thinking of and want to make sure is taken care of if something happens to them. And they're going, man, I really want to figure this out. What's the one piece of advice that you'd share with them?
Take action on something and be consistent with it. You can't sit there and just think about what if. You've got to do something. That first property that we bought, I was so nervous, so scared. We didn't own a personal house at that point. I did not own my own property or my own house, primary residence house. So this was like the first piece of real estate I had ever purchased. But I knew that going into it, I knew that the numbers worked. So I knew that going into it, whatever it is, I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to work. We'll figure it out. And that's what happened. I mean, we were carrying carpet up one night at, I don't know, probably 9:30.
Make sure it didn't get rained on. It was on the first porch.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. It's not as scary as it sounds. You just got to know what you're doing, or at least have an idea of what you're doing and being able to problem solve. It will work out. Real estate is safe as long as you do it right. You don't want to go pay $200,000 for a $50,000 house, but as long as you're like within the realm of what's normal, you're gonna win in this. It's that type of thing.
Yeah, listen to podcasts, listen to other experts, listen to people like Nolan, and really dig in. And I think that what you said there, just act. Because, if you give yourself a due diligence, put something under contract, you could always back out.
Yeah.
And, my husband and I own some real estate as well. And we've actually backed out on more contracts than we've actually closed on, because you've got to act, get it under contract. You can always find out in due diligence if it's going to work for you or not, and give yourself some safety there. But yes, act on something.
Yeah. Even if the act is calling a lender and find out how much you can afford. Or even if it's going online and ordering some note cards that say who you are, or whatever, do something. Write a card, just buy some stamps, do something. Because once you do the first thing, you'll have the confidence to do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing.
Yeah. And you will figure it out if you're scrappy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nolan, for being here with us today. And I know this story will inspire a lot of people, and I'm really, really honored to be in business with you. And I think you're awesome.
Thanks.